Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to, it's in fact an extraordinary council meeting for the 6th of March 2024. It is slightly out of cycle. Warm welcome to you all, staff, members of the media, members of the public that are in the gallery and those watching online. Could we just please start our meeting with our opening karakia? Thank you. Whakatau te hau ki te uru, whakataka te hau ki te tonga, kia mā ki ki. Thank you very much. So, we don't have any apologies today. It's nice being able to say that everybody is here. Good to see. We've got 3 members of the public who wish to speak to us in public participation. Could I invite Vivian to the table, please? Thank you.
Hello.
Hello.
It's definitely an extraordinary meeting, isn't it? Because it's usually has a lot of light reading you have to do, isn't it? I did open the book at one stage where it said there was no contamination, but I forgot to mark the page and I don't know where it is, so I can't really talk about it. Okay, ageing infrastructure and the resilience to natural hazards and climate change, public community health and environmental water solutions. To cut down on flooding and erosion, farmers have asked to increase the size of culverts on farms for years, but HRC and HDC don't want to know or engage in this conversation. It is similar in the urban areas where 2 smaller pipes for the area are being used. Another one, to stop extra poison going into Lake Horowhenua, turn the pipes to Hanamori Road and up to the WWTP rather than letting it flow into the lake. And then it at least doesn't go through the Hokio community. Hokio got told on Monday, this Monday just passed, that by the Horizons rep, don't do anything for 3 days after the storm because of the danger of more leachate toxins in the water being flushed down by the rain. Sad for the community, but helpful because knowledge of a hazard, you see. Why does hazardous trade waste have no cost incurred? This cost for the businesses is just added to the product, is it not? I see in the editor's notes, ratepayers have saved $2 million from the 3 water funding for redevelopment. Still costs for ratepayers. Developers aren't doing it for nothing. Huge costs for removal of the skate park, all that concrete. The Memorial Hall is a great size. The housing people seem to know it's the best hall in Lisbon. And for emergency housing. As far as ratepayers are concerned, just fix the toilets, kitchen, new paint and some sunshades and we'll be away. Ratepayers need the council to put money back into wastewater for the new growth. Major Kemp Rangiua put land aside for the community. Great to see the seat on the village green. A few cove-fi trees for shade would help. Just listen and see the election speeches. Ratepayers need risk hazard audit management reports because we need accountability, transparency, integrity to get their credibility. From Foxton to Ohau, there is a very brown footprint, almost black out there. And I think I've shown you all this picture of the sea from 2000. Imagine what it's like now. I'm pleased about the court case that has just gone through that Murupoko won, because nobody, Woodhaven Gardens should be above any other. Any questions? Thank you.
Thank you, Vivian. Look, you've raised a vast array of different topics and subjects there. Look, if you do have specific queries that you want answers to, then can you please put them in writing so that they can be responded to, because some of the questions you've raised could quite easily be answered, I think, or responded to. Okay, thank you. Charles, welcome.
Charles, can you turn on your mic?
Sorry. Yeah, sorry. So I'll go to documentation on the open agenda. We're page 7, waste management. And the question there is who pays? For what? That's the question in that document. And I'm asking the same sort of question. Who pays for what? Page 10 and 11, working with Māori. And I'm saying, what Māori behind closed doors? That's what I'm saying. What Māori? And going on page 13, it's got development contribution policy. And I'm going, yeah, right. There's a lot of things in that. And then you've got page 16 and 17, iwi consideration. And I'm saying, when is this council HDC going to wake up and have dialogue engagement with the 3 tribes of this district instead of a couple of Maoris behind closed doors? Because I keep on telling you, iwi is all the people of a tribe. It's not a couple of people, a couple of Maoris, a couple of so-called representatives. They are not the iwi, they are not the hapu. The hapu is the people, and it follows on to the iwi. I want you people, if you're learning Te Reo Māori and the kupu, the words, to understand that when you're talking to iwi, you must talk to all the tribe. Page 27, 38 and 39 of this document. The living landfill at Hakea Beach. All right. I don't know if you people know, and you've gone out there yourselves, as governments and even operations, or some of your operations, you've got David, one of the guys who's the manager, he's out there. And I'm talking about the slash from the recent logging out there. And I've talked to your people here and nothing's been done about it. The slash and the broken glass strewn out there is waiting to explode, spreading into the Hakea Township community, into Wairori Forest, and into the Wairori Township. It will all go up. It's been proven overseas and all this because something's got to be done about it. Somehow the slash, like up in the East Coast, got to be removed. I wanted to go in there and get me some firewood, but no, I have got that certification, this, that, this, that. I said, well, I'll put it on a truck and just drop it at my property and I'll cut it up there. So I'm forewarning this council because I've got to favour people that are saying that people hate. And the favour saying I like is, I told you so. So someone's got to, if it happens, someone's going to be accountable for it all. Page 69, environmental considerations. I invite anyone from HCC and come on a 2.5-hour ticket tour with me to open up your eyes on the environment. Don't talk to me about what's happening to the environment. And I show respect to Piriera and what's her name, Victoria Simmons. They have been on this ticket tour with me. They have, and I will ask people when I take them, what do you see? They will tell me what they see. And if there's anything missing, I will tell them what I see to open their eyes up into the environment. Page 95, the RMA 1991 Act. It's got the CEO. In there, my official complaints in reference to the living landfill. Now, the question I asked is, has government seen that complaint? Because you're supposed to see any official complaints come through. You as governments must see those official complaints. So you know what's going on in your community. Whether you agree with the complaint or not is a different matter. But you must know what is going on. That's why they call it official complaints. And I'm talking in regard to it's a resource consent condition to do with the living landfill, right? There are ongoing breaches to that resource consent conditions in regards to the living landfill neighbourhood liaison group, which is called the NLG. That group has been informed off left, right, and centre, and then there was a creation of another group called the PMG, who are nobodies in the resource consent condition, which they meet, this council, or people in this council meet with this PMG, they have meetings and discussions all behind closed doors, leaving the NLG, which is on that resource consent, right out the door. We don't know what's going on, what the heck's going on. Now, I was taken out there to help the archaeological on midden sites and artefacts, and because I do midden sites and artefacts from Wellington right up through the Manawatu, so I know about Wahitapu areas. Midden sites, artefact, Tonga, Tututu, and there, I know about those things. And to be informed, oh, you can be paid for that, and I said, I don't want to be paid, I never want to be paid. Just a cup of tea and biscuits, please, that's all. Yeah, so, yeah. The MLG, the RMA stuff is about CEO, yeah. It's not getting at you personally, okay? Now, the whole agenda document, as I see it, till I saw that thing up there, it's the first time I've seen that thing, is forewarning the governance here. As I said, this is a proposal for HCC governance to delegate its powers and authority from the voting ratepayers on the HDC's operations. And I'm saying, till I saw that document, proved me wrong. Kia ora tātou, any questions?
Kia ora, Charles. Look, just a couple of quick things. You can be assured that councillors have seen your complaint. They were emailed that earlier in the year. Also, NLG is due to meet next Tuesday, if you weren't aware.
No, I said, I'm not on computers, I'm not on smartphones. People come to me for information all the time. I get all for my information.
But it is due to meet, so we're not fobbing it off and not ignoring it by any means. And you forgot me as being one of your tourists around your tour.
So many people. I remember the people I love and the people I hate. Others are, and this last marriage would say, g'day cuz, g'day bro, because we forgot their names. Sorry, Bernie, apologies.
Thank you, Charles. Councillor Olsen.
Yeah, Charles, look, I look forward to a bit of a tiki tour around, actually look at the
Fine.
So
whenever we'll make some arrangement.
Maybe I'll bring the biscuits and the thermos or something.
Yeah. Yeah, no, all good, that'll be good. Anyone who wants to come, yeah. I won't charge you.
Maybe just a question, if that's all right.
Sure.
Your mic, not
my mic's not working.
Okay. Councillor Jennings.
Charles, you said something like development contributions policy, yeah, right. And I just wanted to give you like another 30 seconds to tell me what you don't like about that policy, or what don't you like about the document.
Well, I liked this council years ago. They took quite a while to bring up this development contribution, and then later on, a different council took it out, right? In some ways, I come to these meetings sometimes going, that person's got a conflict of interest, not really declaring it. Because to me, when a person has a conflict of interest and declares it, they've got to get out of the room. They shouldn't be on any other committee to do with whatever's a conflict of interest. And so it's looking at everything and what is the real proposal and who's benefiting out of these developments, you see. And it's not only this council, it's happening throughout the whole of New Zealand, what's happening to our country, and prices going up. It's the same as rates go up. People going to lose their houses. Rates going up and everything else. They are. They're going to be living at the lake and down Hake and up in the hills. So, I don't know. So I'll be watching this development contribution and who's getting what, you know, to ensure there's no conflict of interest.
Councillor Tamihan.
Tēnei te mihana ki a koe matua, kōrua ko matua Jack, koutou kōrua ngā pau te aki mo tātou te hapuri o te whenua mo te taiao, tēnei te me, just acknowledging matua Jack, as I consider them real kaitiaki and leaders in their own right around our environment and spaces. I actually wanted to touch on the last point in your document that you didn't read out. It was actually around reference to governance and delegations, and the last word you lead to is dictatorship. I just wondered too whether you could actually express a little bit more about what your concern is around those delegations.
A lot of responsibility is being delegated to operations away from things like you have, and it's not a slight on anyone. Like if government wants to know something, they'll go to the CEO. Okay, the CEO will pass it down to her staff who have whatever qualifications. They'll come back, tell the CEO. The CEO will tell governments, and because they mightn't have the qualifications, they might believe everything they're hearing. They've got to go out and do their own research as well, and talk to people in the community and whatever, which they already do. You know, things like that. And I can go through. If I went through all those acts, and boy, I could find a lot of things wrong with this council if I went through this act. Those acts or those proposals, you know. I haven't got time because I'm an unpaid consultant.
Thank you, Charles.
Oh, good.
Cool. And our last public participant is Fred McDonald. Fred. Fred, just the right hand button on that microphone in front of you turns on a red light. That means we can all hear you. Thank you. I'm a member of the Otaki Road Safety Group, founded in 1990, sponsored into existence by Mid-Central Health, and that was because of the concerns about the number of accidents, injuries and deaths on the road in our region. We've, through the years, dealt with NZTA and had quite some success in having road safety measures put in place. One of the last major measures that we're still trying to get through is cycle bridges, clip-on lanes beside the bridges between Otaki and Levin and Shannon and Palmerston North. We made a 60-page submission to the National Coroner's Cycle Safety Review. Unfortunately, it wasn't made a public document. We used to work with the Manawatu Wanganui NZTA until they got squashed. We tried working with Palmerston North, too many new boys with wet behind the ears. We got one bridge done, and that's the new bridge just as you come into Shannon. What we're hoping is that the Horowhenua District Council will take this matter up and advocate. At the moment, in the Wellington region, Cavity region, they're putting a clip-on cycle lane on the Waikanae Bridge with a lot of disruption to existing traffic. The next clip-on lane goes on the old Otaki Bridge. All the pathways have been poured now, ready for it. The big problem is that black line on the map. The 1989 Labor government is responsible for this fiasco. No, that's not our region. No, that's not our region. And they all pass the buck and do nothing. That's why I've come to Horowhenua. I tried with the former Mayor Duffy, didn't want to know about it. What we deal with is a here and now. We're trying to save lives, and these are critical measures. Those bridges were all built in the 30s.
I had all the bridge data from NZTA. I was watching Rural Delivery one Sunday morning and there was an ad for Bridget New Zealand with an 0800 number, so I rang him, Pat Surinam. I'll be down in 2 weeks, we'll meet, get me the bridge data. He came, we went to each bridge, had a look, and he put together a price. We went and had a meeting in Wellington with NZTA. His price to do 6 bridges, NZTA could only do 1. That tells you something. The person that was in charge of the Lower North Island, top of the South Island, has since left, and there's a vacuum. But the issue's still there. When I was running the railway station in Otaki, one year there was a flood of overseas cyclists, and they were all coming into me saying, where's the next train to Wellington? We can't deal with the crazy drivers in New Zealand. So I directed at that stage it was Paraparaumu, now it's Waikanae. Railways rang me up and said, how come you're putting so many people with bikes on our commuter trains? I said, because they can't deal with the crazy drivers on the roads. There's an international grapevine that a lot of people are not aware of, but the word went round about how dangerous New Zealand roads were, and those overseas cyclists have stopped coming. With the latest efforts to get people out there on cycles, there are more and more starting to appear. When I came up a week ago to Levin, coming up towards the Manukau rail overbridge, there were 3 cyclists. We had to wait behind them while they transferred there and transversed the Waikawa River Bridge and up past Tatum Park till there was a bit of room to get past them. Anyone that was impatient or not watching what they're doing would have hit those cyclists. So NZTA have said that the new Otaki to Levin Expressway is not going to be open until 2029. Heaven forbid. It's the day-to-day, here and now issues we need dealing with. So we respectfully request that the Horowhenua District Council pick up the matter and run with it. They're in the position of going to the meetings and advocating for it.
Thank you, Fred.
The other issue I wish to raise is another road safety matter. We've sort of been advocating for many years for improvements. I ran the railway station 9 years. I had Intercity, Newman's, Mount Cook Land Lines, White Star Land Lines, Thompson Passenger Services, Rotorua Passenger Services, all coming through. I had 12 passenger trains a day stopping at Otaki. Now, there is 3 intercity services. That's it. They price to discourage short-term passenger. So it's impossible to get from Otaki to Levin and further without paying a lot of money. That's got to be dealt with right now. The trains won't be on the tracks that Wellington Regional Council and Horizons are going partners in. They won't be seen till probably the new expressway between Otaki and Levin's here. It's a day-to-day issue. One of the huge costs that hasn't been quantified is the social cost. There's a lot of families from Otaki that family up here and they can't get to see them. It's a huge cost on them. So that's another thing that we wish to advocate. I've already been to Horizons and raised this issue. We've suggested 4 services a day. They could either run mini buses or full buses if they like, from Palmerston North down to Waikanae where the electrified rail units. So that's another matter we wish to ask the council to advocate for. It's a here and now issue. If you haven't got a car, you're stuck. You can't get there. Especially when they're being forced to go to Palmy for our health service. The last thing, this is a commercial. I saw the mayor on the breakfast news one morning, and this joker from Auckland, I can't remember his name, said, "Where's Horowhenua?" So the light bulb went off straight away. Here's Horowhenua. On the back, we can have Horowhenua District Council. We've had the plates made, so if the council wish to take up the matter, I'd like to see all the councillors wearing these. Give them a Christmas gift.
I think you should definitely send that north so that a certain person understands where Horowhenua is.
Put a road map on, look.
We know where we are. He doesn't, so maybe. Look, thank you, Fred. Appreciate the sentiment in terms of what you've delivered. That look, there's no doubt that the whole transport issue and public transport especially is a major concern for us as well. We are doing a review of all that at the moment with Horizons, understanding that. In terms of those clip-ons and everything, the bridge stuff, yeah, look, we're well aware of some of those challenges around that issue, and we are advocating for some of that infrastructure to be attached to the new expressway. To be honest, I don't think NZTA will listen to us to alter the current bridges at the moment, because that will be our responsibility in a few years' time. But I wondered if have you still got that report that you talked about?
It's on the computer somewhere.
Can you dig that out and maybe send us a copy so that we've got that in front of us?
Yep.
Thank you.
I've got a copy of Horizon's proposed transport plan.
Yep.
And those two matters haven't been included.
Okay.
So I've got to make a submission again, and hopefully they'll be included in the TP. But one thing I do despair with this Adrian Bolt, we call him, Simeon Brown as Transport Minister, he's going to cause a lot of trouble with his new budgets, and this is where we've got to push back. National don't like rail, they like roads. So.
Yeah, look, our role is to deal with whoever government is in power, and we do the best we can to advocate for our community, whatever the rules are. Cheers. Thank you. Okay, so let's get into the meeting. There are no late items. No late items. Any declarations of interest? It's still no good? Oh.
Sorry, just Mr. Mayor, just to declare a interest in relation to item 6.3, which is plan change 4. That's just on the basis that I'm a resident in that area and also was a submitter a number of years ago. So I'll sit out for that matter.
Thank you. So noted. Can we just move to the confirmation of minutes? And at this stage, we'll just be confirming the minutes of the council meeting from the 7th of February 2024. Move that those be accepted. Seconded by Councillor Brannigan. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you. So we'll now move to our reports for decision, which 6.1 is the adoption of the long-term plan 2024-2044 consultation document and supporting information. And welcome Caro to the table, and while she is coming to introduce the report, can I move 3.1, 3.2, that the report be received and the matter is recognised as significant. Seconded by Councillor Young. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Welcome, Caro.
Thank you, Your Worship, and good afternoon, councillors. Before we ask you to adopt the long-term plan consultation document and supporting information, we wanted to note that this proposed LTP is 21 today. It is the 21st council meeting or workshop about the long-term plan since August last year. All of council has been on this journey from the very start, identifying issues facing our community and those council is facing, moving through budget scrutiny, checking in early with the community through early engagement, and growing through the formulation of options to address the key issues. All of that work and those steps culminate today as it is proposed to send the long-term plan consultation document and supporting information out into the world. I'll leave the analogy there though, as this is not a 21-year-old fully formed, ready to leave home for good. This is the next step in the process. The consultation document is for the proposed long-term plan. It is a starting point for discussion with and for feedback from our community. Looking at the material before you, we appreciate the feedback that you've provided since the council agenda went out. We've taken advantage of those days between then and now to make those changes so that the consultation document is ready to go to the printers. The copy you've received, the hard copy in front of you, has the following amendments made. For topic 1, what services do we need for our community? The rates impact has been added in both dollar and percentage terms, showing the rates reduction for each item in options 2 and 3. A note has been added that money received from sale of half the carbon credits would be used to reduce rates, and that has been factored in. The wording about the impact on debt has been made consistent. More context has been included about the origins, purpose and role of Te Awaho Foxton Community Board. In topic 3, who pays for what? And minor formatting changes have also been made. Thank you again for your feedback. Since the agenda went out, we have received the letter from the Medical Officer of Health for the waste assessment. This has been tabled and no further action is required in response. The Council report outlines the different approach this year to the audit process due to the change in direction from the change in approach to Three Waters. If you resolve to adopt the supporting information and consultation document today, this moves us into the formal consultation phase. Following this meeting, the material will be printed and also uploaded to the Let's Kōrero website, ready for the start of the formal consultation period, beginning next Friday, the 15th of March, and running through until the 15th of April. We look forward to the community taking up the range of different engagement opportunities that will be offered during the consultation period to find out more about the LTP and how it may affect them. And, very importantly, we look forward to them making submissions to help inform the final decisions. I want to acknowledge the collective cross-team effort it has taken to be at this point today, this important milestone, and with their support I'd be happy to take any questions about the report and attachments.
Thanks, Karo. Any questions or comments? Councillor Tukapua.
Just about the supporting documents, the rates remission, the postponement policy, can I just clarify whether the later item 6.5 water leakage remission will have an implication on that? Because it's a decision which then has to go into there, which then needs to be updated before it goes out. Is that right?
No, there won't be an impact on in terms of rating, and we'll cover that later on in the report.
No, the remissions policy itself, if 3.5 went through, it's 100% versus 50.
Through your worship, that's a really good point, Councillor Tukapua, and so what I would suggest is that depending on the outcome of that future item that you'll consider, it may mean we need to add an additional sentence into that rates remission policy that acknowledges the decision, albeit it's a temporary decision, so it might not be included in the policy, but it might need to be an asterisk somewhere that says on this date council has given this direction, and I'd be confident that we could do that within the delegations that you'll consider around the changes under 3.18.
Looks like it, Caro. Thank you. Look, before you go, I just want to acknowledge the work that you and the team have played in here, and I think it's reflected in the fact that there aren't too many questions. Councillors have ample opportunity to contribute and inform this document, and I think it's a great document. You should be proud of the work that's gone into it. Thank you. Right, so now we move into the recommendations, and I'm seeking someone to move these in block rather than move them all at once. So, Deputy Mayor Allen.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I'm happy to move 3.3 through to 3.16 inclusive,
which are to do with the draft LTP itself and the supporting documents. So I move those in block.
Seconded by Councillor Tamihana. So the matter's up for discussion or debate, if any. Deputy Mayor Allen.
So just as I said, I've deliberately omitted 3.17, which is the consultation document, which is clearly a separate matter for discussion, and also the matter of delegation around editorial changes, which stands as 3.18. But the rest of them are to go through one by one, given that it's about the package, the draft LTP and the supporting documents. I think it makes sense to do it in block.
Okay, so put those recommendations. I won't read them all. 3.3 to 3.16. Oh, sorry, Councillor Tupapua.
I'll just signal that I will support it, but there was, I guess, something I wanted to float, but I could do that offline, I guess. It's not really... Yeah. And when I say I can take it offline, I don't think it's going to impact, or it doesn't require debate. It's quite minor, if that's okay. Yeah.
And maybe well part of that, giving the delegation to the Chief Executive to alter editorially. Councillor Brannigan.
Yeah, just briefly, I just want to follow up on your words, Mr. Mayor. Someone's been sitting at this table a little while now. I just wanted to comment on the 21 workshops I think Kara mentioned, and some very long evenings and some very robust conversations. And I think, again, a number of us in the room have been on the table a little while now. The thoroughness and the quality of the material that's being presented to the councillors hopefully gives, through our words, gives the public some great deal of comfort that we have really delved down into the challenges that we're faced with within this document. But the quality of the information, the structure of the workshops, and the opportunity we've had to contribute and again delve deeply into everything has been really appreciated. And in my time, it's probably one of the highlights of although those long 21 workshops, it has been one of the highlights in terms of completeness and quality. So just again, thank you for that.
Councillor Jennings.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Sorry, I thought it is remiss not to make a few comments about this, given the hundreds and hundreds of hours of work from staff that have been put into all of these documents, and obviously the steady engagement from elected members over the last 8 months. But actually our journey began a lot before that with the long-term plan amendment last year, and the huge amount of work that staff and elected members put into getting that through and over the line, and that's really set us up for success in terms of this long-term plan. And I think I did want to just make a couple of comments just about, I guess, the broader proposals, and then also just specifically on the development contributions policy. So I guess the key thing is that sitting around this table, I'm sure that not all of us are exactly happy with every single piece and every single word inside these documents, but it's the broader direction of travel. There seems to be a consensus around those key proposals and where we're looking to head. Am I personally happy about the level of rates increase being proposed? No. But am I happy about the sort of the balanced and considered approach that I think we're taking in the documents? Yes. And I think that one of the things that the documents reinforce is that we're dealing with a very nuanced and complex set of interconnected decisions and proposals, and that's not always immediately apparent. Like there's a lot of things that flow from one decision to another, and so I'm hoping that our community understands some of those really challenging decisions that we've had to make, and I'm totally aware that the community will have concerns about that level of rates increase, because no one enjoys the prospect of paying more. But the harsh reality is that we are facing those significant increased costs, and we can't hide from them. And so, in grappling with that challenge, we have scaled the organisation and our budgets for savings. And the proverbial lemon has been squeezed, and there is not a lot of juice left in terms of those savings. And so that's really the stark choice we have, which is accept a level of rate increase at what it is and what is being proposed, or cut quite heavily in terms of those services. And I wanted to reflect, particularly in this just moment, that back in one of those workshops last year, I personally asked for us to model and look at a significant cut to the library's budget of around $1 million. I wanted to see what it looked like. And that $1 million would have represented just a 2% saving in rates increase. But what we got back and what we heard about is that $1 million in savings and cut to that budget would have a drastic effect on the level of service our community would receive. It would mean closing down a facility, would mean some of our libraries only being open 3 days a week, and some really significant changes for our community. And so I think that this process and that example is a good one, because it shows that a lot of things were on the table, and that we did work through these really difficult decisions around where that sweet spot is in terms of rates increase and how much we think our community's willing to accept in terms of service cuts. So I'd urge the community to look at what we're proposing, focus on the services that matter most. If you think we've got it wrong, if you think there are other services that you are willing to look at going without, or there's some things that we're proposing to cut that you think are essential, you need to tell us that. And so we're sort of over to the community now to tell us whether we've got that balance right. On the development contributions policy, I just wanted to take a moment look, absolutely, first and foremost, the policy settings are right insofar as the person that causes the need for development or infrastructure should pay the cost. There's obviously some exceptions to that, and there's where the community at large is also benefiting from upgrades to infrastructure. There's obviously a contribution that should be made. But I guess what I'm really concerned about is that the level of increase to some of those development contributions. We're looking at potentially $45,000 in Oho in northeast Levin, $37,000 in Taraika, and $28,000 in Levin. And so there's some very big numbers that could very well stunt our growth and our forecasts around growth. But I'm not saying that I disagree with proposing those, but I think that what it illustrates is that we do need other tools in our toolbox. And so I'm very hopeful that central government will, in time, come with some different options there in terms of how we fund that growth and how we can manage some of these pressures on our balance sheet around growth infrastructure. Because at the moment, as I say, even though those increases and those numbers in terms of the policy are large and a bit scary for some, likely for the mum and dad that's wanting to build a new house on a section, that's the stark choice is it them or is it the community at large? And as I said before, the economic principle of the exacerbator pays is an important one, and that's what underpins our policy. So I'll be supporting the motion, but we do need to be really careful around the settings that we put in place around growth, so that we don't undermine our own objectives at being a growth open council. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. And look, can I just endorse a lot of the comments that you made there, which are, I pretty plainly outlining the challenges that we have in front of us, and the document says challenging times, challenging choices, where we're not fudging or trying to not highlight the challenges that we do have in front of us. And I'm very conscious that as
Councillor Jennings has just said, none of us want to propose a rates increase of this number, especially in the economic climate that we have. But I also want to remind councillors that just because we are going out to the community with a preferred option or options does not necessarily mean that that's where we might land. And that's why the consultation period is extremely important, that we get that feedback. And I suppose I'm laying a challenge to the community that if they don't like what we are proposing, then they need to make sure that they come and tell us that they don't like it, because I think we are being very open and transparent in terms of putting those challenges to them. The reality is that 80% of our revenue comes from rates. We don't have an airport that we can sell shares in. We don't have acres and acres of forested blocks or acres of land that we can easily dispose of to be able to create different revenue streams. So rates are our blunt instrument, if you like, in terms of making sure that, as Councillor Jennings says, we have and meet that growth that is coming towards us. So I almost lay a challenge to our community to ensure that they do respond to this document, and as much as, despite what our auditor said last week in terms of it being too in depth or too long, I believe that we are plainly laying out to our community what is in front of us and the challenge that we have. So the next month or so is extremely critical in terms of ensuring that what we are proposing is either endorsed or challenged by our community. So we need to make sure that we are part of that and listen intently to what they have to say. Again, by saying that too, though, I don't want the consultation just to be a focus on rates. There's a heck of a lot more interweaved into our growth strategy, what is happening in our community, and a whole lot of different things that rates might be sure, it might look pretty ugly, but from where we come from, there's a heck of a lot more that constitutes our community and what it means and the different things that we are proposing in this 20-year plan. So with that, unless anyone else wishes to make a comment, Councillor Hillstead.
I'd just pick up on your word because I think it's worthwhile mentioning that of this being the 21st meeting, as stated in the agenda in front of us, that 18 of those were in a public environment. So when we have commentary around operating behind closed doors and dictatorships, I really would like to point out that that is not occurring. This is an open environment. We have our community here, we have our media here as well, and we're operating in a transparent and honest environment as well. So I think it's well worthwhile noting.
Councillor Tamiha.
Kia ora everyone. Look, just really wanted to endorse everyone's words. I actually wanted to thank my fellow councillors actually for all the kōrero we share and the respect that's shown during those conversations and those many workshops. But more so really to you, Monique, and the team for the massive amount of work that you do in really ensuring our community understand, especially for me being one of the newer, understanding the complexities that council have to walk through to make decisions. And I'm talking about government reform and the fact that, you know, what I learned in the LTPA and have now learned in this process, that we're bound by certain things and we always have to find ways to compromise to still be able to deliver to our community. I also wanted to endorse what Councillor Grimstone said, because those comments that he referred to come from many parts. But I suppose my key message in that is people can dress things up however they want, but it's up to your government to seek those answers. And so what I would ensure our community out there is that there are a bunch of councillors, elected members here, that are willing to dive deep and look harder at things on their behalf, because we actually want to try and get it right. So we're not going to get it right all the time, but I certainly appreciate the journey. And I appreciate today that we're taking the next steps, and I'm happy to support the motion. Kia ora.
So I'll put those recommendations 3.3 to 3.16. All those in favour? Against? Carried unanimously. Thank you very much. Could I then move 3.17 and 3.18 that Horowhenua District Council adopts the consultation document for the long-term plan 2024 to 2044 for public consultation, and 3.18 that if necessary the group manager community vision and delivery in consultation with the chief executive be given delegated authority to make editorial changes that may arise as part of the publication process for the proposed long-term plan 2024-2044. Seconder, Councillor Proctor, are you? I saw a finger raised. I'm sorry, I was assume you were saying. Thank you. Councillor, Deputy Mayor Al.
Yes, so speaking to that, and in particular 3.17, Mr. Mayor, as previous speakers have identified, this is the most challenging set of circumstances in which we're going out to the public. In fact, I can't remember a more challenging long-term plan discussion that we have to have with our community. There are those external pressures over which we have no control, which account for 14% of the rate increase before we do anything else. That's a fact we have to keep on the table. Despite the knife that we took to a number of activities, we still only managed to bring it down to the 17.4. So the challenge is absolutely real. Coupled with that challenge is the need to recognise that we are one of the poorest districts in New Zealand. So we're going out with a proposed rate increase of 17.4 in the most challenging of circumstances, and with a central government, and I refer to all central governments, past and present, who are very good at telling us what to do, but very bad at giving us proper, adequate funding with which to do it. So those are the three tensions which we face. The reason I give that background is because this for me is now, what do we do over the next 4 weeks? There are 4 weeks of engagement with our community in which we have to have that hard conversation in which we is the crucial word. This is about council and community being one. It's about us discussing in an open, supportive way with our people, our community, about what we can do to recognise those tensions of this huge rate increase and the inability to pay that many people will face. And it's worth noting not only the document itself, which I think has struck a very good balance between having sufficient information to inform the public, but not being overwhelming. So this is a very valuable document which speaks with some very good nuance around those key issues. And of course there's those huge number of supporting documents for people who want to dwell into the detail. I want to acknowledge the thinking both around the table here but also from our excellent support staff in terms of how we engage with the public. And again, those details will be made known and will be available on the website. But what we've done is made every effort to make engagement as nuanced as possible, be it one-on-one, be it through social media, or be it through the citizens panel, which worked very well. I remember you, Mr. Mayor, leading one here with the long-term plan amendment. We are trying to offer every possible opportunity for the public to engage, and I really hope that we can, in the spirit of us, community and council as one, come to something which is manageable in these circumstances. Here. All set. Councillor Tukutu.
I don't have mine before the discussion or debate to advance, so there wasn't an opportunity for questions.
For this particular one?
3.17 and which flows into 3.18.
Right. Do you want us to bring
Caro there are some further amendments I'd be seeking within the document. Some are editorial and some are not. Some I actually have to ask fellow councillors whether they would agree or not on a couple. I've floated these past Chief Executive, and some of them I have to ask for.
I wasn't aware that was the case, sorry.
Yeah.
Yes, please.
I've got them all. So page 17 of the consultation document, you're welcome to look at your latest version of it in front of you. So down on the impact on debt, it says it's unlikely to affect debt. However, when it refers to bullet points 10, return borrowing money, and then bullet point 4 further down, under impact on rates, continue to fund some recycling through debt, there is potentially effects. So that is false. Page 21, give or take this.
Sorry, can we just on to that particular issue straight away?
Thank you, Your Worship. I just think if we go through it one by one, then hopefully we can resolve it.
Okay.
Just with the decision making process. So that one there, I feel a level of confidence that can be made into editorial changes, and it would just be instead of it reading this depends on which items above are chosen, but these are unlikely to affect debt. It will say this depends on which items above are chosen, and reflect. It will say something along the lines of where it is impacted, we've highlighted it above.
Yeah. Okay. Page 23 of the consultation document. There's crosses. There's two. I'll number it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. The ninth one, increase the need for more recycling or more mobile recycling stations, and then it says more mobile recycling stations required. So you can effectively delete the one ahead or merge the two because he's saying the same thing.
So through you, Your Worship, what I'd propose to change there is the bullet point would read, increase the need for more mobile recycling stations, which would be moderately cheaper. So we'll essentially, as Councillor Tukupo has identified, merge those two bullet points.
On page 25, which is the screen one, it's not numbered, I'm just holding it up for you. There's a number of, I guess, 2 would be editorial. For example, now that we've adopted the appendice of the Ministry of Health's letter, you probably need to include under the hazardous waste, herbicides, etc., medical waste. She's referred to that page 2, paragraph 3 of her letter. Yeah, there's just a couple. Yeah, I'll keep going. Consider those minor. Page 27 and 28, these ones in particular might have. So underneath the Te Awaho Community Board rate, when it refers to 5 members elected by voters, it would be helpful if it said Kere ward voters, so it's not voters in general, and the councillor appointed by HDC. On page 28, that top X in red, potential to create negative sentiment, and this is my view, that's not a fact, that's rather a feeling, and you could get upset about many a thing and have resentment or sentiment, so I'd like to see that line removed.
So the earlier point around the elected by Kere ward voters and appointed by, I will make those changes as part of the editorial delegations, which you've not given me yet. But when Councillor Tukupo tested me on this in advance of the meeting, my advice to her was that removing that bullet point, potential to create negative sentiment within Foxton and Foxton Beach ratepayers, was something she needed to test with the table. So basically you need to agree or disagree.
Yeah. So I'm just pointing out that that's there's going to be, I anticipate a lot of, unfortunately, focus on the rate rise, and there's going to be a lot of angst about this or negativity, and I just don't want to incite it by just putting something of that nature in there. It's rather a feeling than a fact. Like, I'm happy if it says the implications are financial, like, you know, things go up, things go down, but I'm just saying it's a sentiment. I would rather see that removed.
Look, I thank Councillor Tukapua for bringing it to our attention, and I understand where you're coming from, and I do support the suggestion that that probably doesn't add to the discussion at all. The feelings will be expressed, absolutely, one way or the other, but there's no need for that to be stated in that document. Otherwise, you can state it for almost everything else that's contentious. So thank you for drawing it.
So my sense is that could be included as an editorial withdrawal of that line if everybody is comfortable with that. Otherwise, we have to have a notice of a recommendation or a motion put to remove it and then debate it. So I'm looking for a consensus in terms of whether if there's any objection to doing it.
Yeah, for me, it's a slightly different view. Is that by taking that away, it doesn't give too much balance about the effects of this preferred option. In other words, there'd be a lot more green ticks and less red X's, which I just concerned it might take a bit of balance away from the conversation. That's all. And I do wonder whether it could be reworded rather than removed, because it will create this. Now this will create some negative sentiments.
Like every preferred option in the document could initiate some.
That's right.
Yeah,
it's in the consultation document.
Right.
We've put it in there for a reason.
Yeah.
So I just wonder. My view is that, and you can hold that view, Mr. Mayor.
Okay.
My view is that I think it would create an imbalance in that option, but I guess I might be a lone wolf.
So I've got one who would like to have a further debate on this issue. Is there anyone else in that space?
I would align with Ross in terms of I think a rewording is more appropriate, because I think what it's flagging is that this potentially had maybe a higher than usual interest from the Foxton community regarding this issue, and from me that's what that point in there is trying to word. So I think there's a compromise in there that it's a reword versus a remove altogether.
Okay, Councillor Boyle.
I think it'd be excessively wasteful of our time to debate the matter, given that it's one line that could be put under every option in the entire book.
Councillor Tamiana.
Yeah, I err on the side of Councillor Tukapua and Councillor Allen. I suppose there's two words in there that I don't like, and one's potential and one's sentiment. They're both not real, and so I like the idea of a reword. But I also, I did raise in the week about, the other X that could be in there would be the perception of the wider district about the function of the community board. And so, that's why I compromised today by saying that, no, I actually agree that it's a reword or a removal for me, but I don't think we need a debate.
Okay. I don't want to get this into a debate without even putting. I'm comfortable that I've got a reasonable consensus around the table that we should actually remove the thing, and I'm giving delegated authority to the Chief Executive, as we will under 3.18 together, to make an editorial adjustment by removing that line.
No, I don't like it.
No, you're well. Okay. Councillor Tukapua, have you got other items?
The last and final amendment or potential, asking, page 21, the third X at the bottom where it refers to higher costs for rural service, but the delivery is not necessarily costing more as it's written. It's actually realising true costs and actual cost applied differently. It's a shifting rather than an increase on who's, so that's not quite right. And because when you refer to it above, that second paragraph talks about a continue to receive the service with no contribution. So that's just reinforcing what I've tried to explain. So that needs
some rewording.
fixing.
Yeah. So noted, and I'm sure the Chief Executive's gaining that sentiment.
And I just wondered whether, I don't know whether this would trigger any community members' questions around our comment. That paragraph where it says we aren't aligning with the best practice for rating models, without a context or explaining that, it looks like we're breaking a rule. But I know that if in any of these matters, any of these issues, topics raised, it's the supporting document, the fatter book over here, that will provide the depth. But really, we want to make it easy for them to understand. I think if we're going to say something like that, we need to either explain a bit more, because they're not necessarily going to go here. That's all. Otherwise, take it out and fix it.
Any further editorial notes? So we'll just note that 3.18, that as stated, that the Group Manager, Community Vision Delivery and Consultation with Chief Executive be given delegated authority to make editorial changes already signalled, and that may arise as part of the publication process for the proposed long-term plan 2024-2044. Everyone comfortable with that? I'll put those two motions. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you very much. We look forward to the next month. 5 weeks. Right, we're now moving to 6.2, which is our delegations register. And welcome Nikki to the table. While Nikki's getting here, can I just move 3.1, 3.2, the report be received and recognised as not significant. Seconded by Councillor Jennings. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Welcome, Nikki.
Good afternoon, Your Worship and Councillors. I will take the report in front of you as read, but I do want to reiterate that bringing the delegations register for your consideration today reflects completion of stage 2 of the delegations update. I would like to take the opportunity to thank Council for your direction through stage 1 of the update, which was completed and adopted by Council last year in November 2023, and the further direction Council provided to proceed with updates in stage 2 to be brought back for Council consideration, which marks the milestone we're at today. I would like to acknowledge correspondence between Council and the Chief Executive Officer yesterday with regards to the property delegations, specifically the power to acquire property. And as a result, I would like to propose an amendment to the wording in this section for Council consideration this afternoon. On page 121 and 122 of the Council agenda, and pages 16 and 17 of the proposed delegation register itself, within Part A, Subpart 5, the Chief Executive Officer property delegations. In the third row of the table with regards to acquisition of land, the paragraph I will draw your attention to commences with the authority to negotiate, enter into, implement, vary, enforce and cancel contracts with other parties on behalf of Council for the acquisition of land. And that paragraph ends in accordance with the long-term plan or Council resolution. Within the delegations table that we are looking at, there is also a limitations section, and that currently states that the above delegation is subject to the terms of the financial delegation to the Chief Executive Officer. For the purpose of absolute clarity of the delegation, I propose that that first paragraph ends with accordance with the long-term plan, full stop. This removes the wording or Council resolution, and I propose this is reflected with more clarity within the limitation of the exercise of all property delegations. The limitation would read, all of the above delegations are subject to the terms of the financial delegation to the Chief Executive Officer, with additional proposed wording to be added where the transaction exceeds the Chief Executive Officer financial delegation council resolution is required. I provided the proposed amendments in full, which Grayson has as part of your consideration following. I would also like to reiterate that the rates remission section, page 125 of the agenda and page 20 of the delegations register itself, has been left reflected of the prior operative register pending the conversations with the community and ultimately decisions of council on rates remissions and postponement. This section should be updated following those decisions and direction. Thank you.
Any questions for Nikki? Just
No, but I did run a couple of questions by her, which others might want to hear before you enter into the discussion or debate. Okay. Firstly, under Part A of the Chief Executive's interim powers, that recess period between December and January, I was looking for, because obviously, under urgency, this delegation would allow the officer at the time, it's not always the Chief Executive, to enter into any contract. And this, as it reads, would only need to be passed by one elected member in the absence of mayor, then deputy, etc. But I'd like to see some wording, so long as it doesn't trigger significance or that the implications of risk aren't high. I wouldn't be comfortable with that standalone. But if there's guidance or advice around how to strengthen that, or if there's a suggestion to leave it as is, well then I'll just note my objection and later.
Through you, Your Worship, a suggestion is that at the end of that sentence in the new year, that we add an additional sentence that could read something along the lines of, should the matter be of significance or have a high risk profile attached, the Chief Executive is to consult with a quorum of elected members.
Yeah, if that's what the mayor or others are.
I think that the intent of your comment is just making sure that nothing really big gets done between two people. That actually, if it's really big, that actually councillors know about it.
Yes.
And are consulted.
Thank you. That's what I'm looking for.
We can make that amendment.
The next thing is probably a question for ourselves. I wonder, and this can be like we can sort this out later, but I'm just raising it here, how we will monitor the frequency or any financial implications of the writing off of debts over 30k. Like that's sort of over a period of time, how often or how much overall. That's for us to monitor. When it comes to legal proceedings, this again can be sub-delegated. I was looking for just a slight editorial amendment there so it clarifies exactly the limit up to 50,000 and that which is beyond 50,000. I think Nikki knows how to fix that. And the last one is under the rates remission policy, it's my understanding that the 2,500 limit and check-in with risk chair is inconsistent with the policy, and it actually is meant to be the mayor. I know that the new amounts are changing to reflect 2,500, 10,000, over 10,000, but I think that's wrong. This that one line. Anyway.
Okay, so I'm just going to go back to the legal proceedings first, and then I'm going to come to rates remissions because I think it's important that we go through both of those in detail. So with regards to the legal proceedings, I believe similar to what has been proposed for the property acquisition amendment, that similar could be applied here. And so if you go to page 124 of the agenda, or if you're in the delegation register itself, it's page 19. The second, the middle of that table, which is where the authority to settle claims against council, following on from the comma after, so if it reads the authority to settle claims against council where proceedings are filed or contemplated up to a limit of 50,000 exclusive of GST, in accordance with a recommendation from council's insurers or competent legal advice, that could be amended to full stop. And then the subsequent sentence, which refers essentially to a limitation, could be moved to the limitation and expanded on, that then clearly says where time constraints do not permit the matter to be referred to a meeting of council or an appropriate committee, you could take a similar approach to set what council feels appropriate there with that limitation. And I think that would address the point that Councillor Takapua is raising. Now, if we move to the rates remission section, and I'll just make sure I'm giving you the correct numbers. So that is page 125 of the agenda and page 20 of the actual delegation register document itself. So following on from the question from Councillor Takapua earlier, I have quickly gone to open the document, the current policy document, and just want to confirm that there is some slight variance in wording. So that current wording, which is reflected in the delegation register, is from a prior historic operative register that has been the same wording for some time. And so therefore that has carried through. The difference is the wording was previously referred to the chairperson of the Finance, Audit and Risk Committee for decision. And therefore, as that committee is no longer referred to, it has been updated. In terms of looking at the current rates remission policy wording, which is available on our website, the wording is referred to member of the Finance Subcommittee for decision, which would have been the committee at that time. So it does reflect, albeit it is reflecting an updated version of the reference being the chairperson, it does reflect the current policy.
So, Councillor, you think that that line should be changed to what?
Consistent. So the remissions have many parts. 17, I think, and all of the others. It's usually chief executive and the mayor, officer, and the mayor. And I'm just saying it's inconsistent. But however, the new policy, which is drafted to go out, actually changes it again. It's 2,500 officer, 10,000 CE, above 10,000 council. So it's about to change potentially, but I just think it's inconsistent. I was looking for same. That's all. Doesn't matter. That can be considered and be amended if we're looking for consistency.
The chair of the risk insurance, any comments? Comfortable with that?
Sounds entirely reasonable.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So, noting those amendments and changes in editorial again, basically in terms of being consistent, I don't think we've got any issues in terms of that being done. That's good. Councillor Jennings.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I was going to say, unless there was anyone that indicated they wanted to speak to it, I was happy to move 3.3 and 3.4, subject to the changes that have been outlined by Ms. No, yep.
3.3 now reads, Council adopts the recommended delegations register attached to this report dated 6th of March 2024, noting the delegations it provides to the Chief Executive Officer and incorporating the changes to pages 16, 17 of the delegations register, Part A, Subpart 5, Chief Executive Officer property delegations to read. Authority to negotiate, enter into, implement, vary, enforce and cancel contracts with other parties on behalf of the Council for the acquisition of land, including interests in land, or the disposition of land, including interest in land owned by the Council, and to sign all required documentation in accordance with the long-term plan. Should they read 2024-2044? No, just the long-term plan. Okay. The limitation, all of the above delegations are subject to terms of the financial delegation to the Chief Executive Officer where the transaction exceeds the Chief Executive Officer financial delegation. Council resolution is required, and noting further amendments received from the table to be inserted from the table, and noting further amendments received from the table. 3.4, that the adopted delegations register dated 6th of March 2024 be published on the Council website. Moved by Councillor Jennings, seconded by Councillor Tukapua. Any further discussion or debate? Councillor Tamihana.
Kia ora. Again, thank you to the team for providing this report for us today and the recommendations. I can signal that I will support the recommendations today, but comment from me was appreciated the opportunity to provide feedback to everyone and see that the feedback considered and taken up where it can be. I also just want to relate to one of the public speakers this morning that raised the issue around their fear of delegations to operational, and I can say that I had those same not concerns but same considerations, and for me I can say that, and thank you Councillor Tukapua for what you've done today and what you've raised, because it's actually given me assurance that the decision that we're making today is ensuring that governance can still operate as governance and operations have the ability to get on and do things when we're not able to. So that's just my comment. Kia ora.
For the recommendations then, all those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you. And thank you, Nikki. Sorry you disappeared before I could say thank you. Appreciate all the work that's gone into this as well. Cheers. Right, moving to 6.3. Plan change 4, Tararika Growth Area Approval and Operative Date. Welcome Lauren to the table, and just moving 3.1, 3.2, that the report be received and recognised as not significant. Move that, seconded by Deputy Mayor Allen. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you. Noting that Councillor Jennings has left the table, and also just want to acknowledge before we get into this the presence of the former Deputy Mayor and who was Chair of the Hearings Committee the previous term, and who was the Council appointed Commissioner to this plan change, and probably did 3 years' work in the space of about 6 months. And the amount of time and effort that was probably would have said no if she'd realised how big a job it was going to be. But it's great that she can be here to finally see this being made operative. So welcome, Joe. Thank you, Lauren.
Kia ora tātou. I'm very pleased to be presenting Plan Change 4 to Council to adopt and set the operative date today. The project has extended over several years and at various stages has been in front of Council several times over those last few years, ranging from the early drafting stages to the public notification and submission stages to the hearing stage, and more recently the resolution of Environment Court appeals. Those appeals were all able to be resolved via mediation, with these mediation agreements having now been received from the court, with the remaining decision left for Council to be to set that date that that plan change would become operative. Happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
doesn't seem fair, Lauren, that you should get away without answering questions. But look, and along with Joe's involvement, your involvement has been significant in the last probably 4 years at least of this. This is a major milestone for this council. I don't doubt. We know that plan changes can be pretty hairy, if you like, sort of operational type of issues as well as governance type of issues. But yeah, look, this is. It seems a long time ago since you first presented that map. A schematic drawn to us about how Taurika could look. So I don't think any of us understand the process sometimes that has to be involved in being able to get to the stage. But to see this finally come to fruition, I'm sure you're, as you say, extremely pleased and proud to be doing this today. So yeah, just want to acknowledge everything that you've done in this space. Cheers.
Thank you.
Right, so 3.3, that the approved plan change 4 be publicly notified in accordance with clause 20 of the first schedule of the Resource Management Act 1991, and that such notice contain the operative date for the plan change being not less than 5 working days after the date of the public notification. Moved by Councillor Brannigan, seconded by... I'm happy to move, second that actually. Any further debate or discussion? Councillor.
I guess it certainly deserves some discussion, because again, the members that were around the table at the time when this project was first mooted was a time of excitement, trepidation, what are we getting ourselves into, but again, what the outcomes could be, and obviously the work that's gone in between then and now is absolutely significant, and I think a significant part of the growth of this district. So just to support everything that's been done, the work Warren and the team have done, and we sit back now and hopefully wait to see the fruits and the buildings appear on that land, and what it will bring this district, and certainly this town, but the wider district and the region, because it's so significant. So yeah, it's just nice to be able to be here and support it going through. So thank you too.
Councillor Tabian.
Kia ora, again, thank you for the report. Yeah, this is interesting for me, and I do raise a lot of questions around this development, but in saying that, I know a heck of a lot of work has gone in, and it is a critical area of growth for our district. And so I suppose for me, it's ensuring that our infrastructure can cope with the growth that's coming, and that's probably what I'm signalling to our community, is that while I will support the motion today, I'm still very mindful that we have obligations not only to the community but our environment more than anything, to ensure that what we put in place is going to protect, maintain and enhance, for me, those critical parts of our landscape. So yeah, and I'm also reminded too that there's more than one iwi in our district, and I'll always say that, and we've heard it again today from a public speaker, but I acknowledge that this mahi has been undertaken, and I see that the iwi are noted in this document. Kia ora.
Kia ora. Thanks, Justin. Put the recommendation then. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you.
Yeah. Mayor Bernie, can I just express my thanks to the team, and particularly you, Lauren, for staying the course. This did start a long time ago, and you've seen it through to the end. Someone like yourself, I'm sure, could get, someone will try and steal you. But yeah, I just want to thank you for staying, finishing the job. I hope you stick around. Help us train up some more good ones. That'll be great. Kia ora.
Exactly, that's recorded and we'll bring it out if need be.
Thank you all. That is a significant decision that we've made there, and one I'm sure that we will look back in many years to come as being quite transformational for this district. Welcome back to the table, Councillor Jennings. We're now moving to 6.4, which is the Horowhenua District Draft Speed Management Plan, changes to speed management planning process. And while James is coming to the table, can we just move 3.1 and 3.2? Report be received and recognised as not significant. Thank you. Seconded by Councillor Tamihana. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you. Welcome, James.
Thank you, Your Worship. Good afternoon, councillors. So we've brought this paper to you today because we're seeking to progress getting the speed management plan we endorsed in August endorsed through the NZTA Director of Land Transport. The original wording of the previous council meeting directed us to submit it to Horizons. Since that's happened, the Minister of Transport, has sent a letter to all road controlling authorities in the country indicating that the government will be seeking to change the land transport rule for setting speed limits that was set in 2022. For that reason, a number of councils in the region, as well as Horizons, are looking at pausing their processes. So the objective of having our speed management plan operational is not certain with that process. So we're eager to progress with enacting the speed management plan, both to confirm the speed limit changes which were thoroughly consulted and developed with the community, but to also rectify legal anomalies with the posted speed limits, which means that some of the posted speed limits, which we set in 2017 and earlier, are inconsistent with the speeds that are registered in the National Speed Limit Register. This creates a number of complications for us, potentially with enforcement matters of speed limits, but also with developments. It's difficult for a developer to develop an intersection on a road that has a speed limit that is posted as one thing but is registered as something else. It creates complications in the processes. We've developed three options, A, B, and C, to consider. Our recommended option is option A. Option A will see us revoke the previous decision to submit the speed management plan through to Horizons, and that option requires a support of 75% of the table, which would be 10 currently, and then submit it to the NZTA Director of Land Transport for endorsement. Option B is effectively the default option, so if option A or C are not supported sufficiently, we'll effectively have our speed management plans submitted to Horizons, which may or may not progress at that stage. We aren't certain if the speed management plan we've developed will be consistent with a future rule change. It's possible it will, but it's also possible that we would have to repeat the entire process, and based on the content of the Minister's letter, it potentially would include a more onerous process than we went through last year. And option C, we've provided the opportunity to intentionally revoke the speed management plan from being submitted to Horizon, and plan to completely review the process again once the new rule is in place. That's all I've got to add to the paper, but I'm happy to take any questions.
So the Chief Executive just wants to add something to that.
Thank you, Your Worship. And so I just thought it would be helpful particularly for the public's benefit, to articulate that this is, people would have heard Councillor Tamihana earlier acknowledge kind of the complexity of government reform and how change in government can impact our context. And so we find ourselves in a situation where we were instructed by the government to do some work. We've done the work. In good faith, we engaged with our community. We come up with a plan off the back of that community engagement. Council endorsed that plan, and then we've had a change in government which has changed the pathway. And so this is very procedural in many ways, in which currently what James is highlighting is that your resolution says, can you go give it to Horizons? Our advice to you is giving it to Horizons is not going to achieve the outcome in which you set out to achieve at the time in which you made that decision, because the rules have changed, and so we're asking you for permission to instead send it to Wellington, because that is now the pathway in which we would be able to bring to life the intent of the plan.
And to add to what the commentary that's been provided yesterday at the Regional Transport Committee meeting, it was endorsed that the region stop, or regional council stop, doing any work on the speed management plan until the new, what do they call it, the transport rule, which sets speed limits, be introduced, which the Minister has said will happen at some stage. Not given any definite timeline in terms of when that might be yet. Any further questions for James? Councillor Jennings.
James, just a question from me. If there was an annoying councillor that wanted to make some changes to the substance of the SMP, is that permitted without further consultation at this stage?
Thanks for the question, Councillor Jennings. We had, as officers, we had put a lot of consideration into an alternative pathway like you're describing. At this stage, we think it's unlikely. The most we could do in terms of flexibility would be the timing in which we deliver the changes in the speed management plan. But the substance and the endorsement of the plan, if we made any alterations, it would require consultation again.
Mr. Tukupa.
So I stand by the plan which we endorsed, particularly the strength and the target to protect children at schools. So which of these or tell me, does option A protect that, or does or do the others waver from that or put that at risk? Because I understand, like, the rules legally will change at some point with the new government, and then they might roll out, well, now you need to do that in 12 months' time, blah, 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 and it gets revisited, some of it. But I guess I'm not prepared to wait 12 months in which time a child could get hurt. And I just want to see some action now. Tell me, does option A do that?
Yes, so in my view, option A would be would cause the least delays in allowing us to enact the plan that we endorsed. It doesn't prevent us from putting further changes in the future or relooking at the changes we did do if we assess them and we're not happy with them. Those are options depending on what the content of the new rule has. But if the goal is to improve the safety as we set out in the speed management plan, in my opinion, the fastest and most certain way to do it would be option A.
Councillor Browning.
Firstly, comment, James, thanks for the summary you sent through too. That was excellent. Gave us a good opportunity to bounce things. My question around, I guess, risk. If we did go forward, adopt the plan, option A, is there any risk anywhere given the new government, the minister's the new rules, perhaps, and if so, what would that be?
Through you, Your Worship, Mr. Wallace is our expert on the new GPS, and I think that's what you're alluding to, his helpful commentary on what does the GPS potentially mean for us. My response, Councillor Brannigan, would be I think there is greater risk if you don't adopt option A, and the greater risk is more on the basis that, in good faith, this council developed a plan, consulted with the community, heard submissions to that conversation, and then adopted a plan. We're just stuck in a procedural limbo space of not being able to send it to the people that at the time we were supposed to send it to, and we need to send it to someone else. And so my advice is I think there's greater risk from a community perspective if the plan isn't referred on to Wahakutahi.
Councillor Tamihana.
Oh, kia ora. Tēnā koe, James. Always great hearing you and having your reports to us. Look, I resonate with Councillor Tukua also and the other comments that have been made. I suppose the question for me is, and I hate talking about funding, but does the implications of the Minister and the change how we would have funded progressing our safety, what we've consulted on? I suppose that's probably what I want our community to understand is where would this now be funded from if there is an impact on what the Minister's done? Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Councillor Tamihana. That's a good point, a good question. So the process we went through, it did not, there was no additional funding from NZTA to assist us with that process. There's been no indication that if any further processes are required that there will be any supplementary funding. It's expected that they will be delivered within existing funding budgets. So to me, a risk of not delivering the speed management plan is that we are in a position where we still really need to do something, but all of the past investment, time and money that we've spent on it is sort of null and void.
And you might recall, and apologies, I was just trying to find it, in the commentary that James has provided us about the impact of the GPS and what it might mean for us. He uses the example of the raised platforms and how that been something that we may have been able to fund historically under safety budget, but we might not be able to use. You should probably take over from here because it's now in your space.
Yeah, I could touch on that briefly. It's probably worth an entire briefing and help us potentially draft up a submission to the draft government policy statement on land transport. But effectively, one of the most common safety improvements we undertake around schools is making the pedestrian crossings safer by basically building them up higher. We do a concrete or asphalt speed hump that's big and flat on the top. They're very effective. There's a lot of international and studies within New Zealand that show that they're largely the safest type of treatment for pedestrian crossings, especially when you have a lot of pedestrians who are kids. They're short, so they can't see above the car as easily. They become more prominent in the view of motorists. They're really good. The draft GPS has a small mention in the section that's called the Minister's Expectations towards the end of the document, where the Ministers indicated they do not want to see funding from the National Land Transport Fund directed to these types of treatments, which, as far as I know, I've not seen a direct indication that some specific treatment should or should not be applied from the at a government level. It's more something that a design engineer would decide. So it's a surprise, and it would concern us with how we've developed our safety program, which has included those for the next 3 years, installing a number of those types of treatments. So we would have to have a good look at our program and how it would work and what we could alter if that becomes operative.
So we've just shifted from speed management to safety, but that's all good. Noting that the GPS, any response needs to be back by the 2nd of April, I'm assuming that we'll get the opportunity to feed into that if necessary. We won't. We'll talk about that later. But any further questions for James? Thank you, James. Oh, questions?
If there's no questions, happy to move through.
Oh, yeah, no, I was just going to think. Well, first of all, we need to move 3.3. Yep, to ensure that we can either, move the other options. And because we are revoking a council recommendation, it does need 75% of council to endorse that recommendation. It's not just a majority. Councillor Brannigan, I'm assuming you're happy to move 3.3, the council revoke resolution CO 23/231, submitting the Horowhenua District Draft Speed Management Plan 2024-2034 to Horizons Regional Council for inclusion in the Regional Speed Management Plan. Do I have a second for that? Councillor Deputy Mayor Allen, any further discussion? Put their motion. All those in favour? Yeah, show of hands would be easiest. Thank you. Any against? Thank you. Passed. Okay, so then could someone wish to move Councillor Brannigan?
Second.
Moved by Councillor Brannigan, seconded by Councillor Tupapua. Any further discussion or debate on that? Councillor Brannigan.
Just very briefly, done the work. Went to the public, supported it. Let's get on with it.
Thank you. Councillor Jennings.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm just going to speak very briefly against the motion. Just going to be a very brief 2 minutes. And I knew Councillor Brannigan was going to say get on with it. So, in fact, I might have even given him that line. But look, I just have to explain my reason voting against this. I was previously the lone voice against voting for the speed management plan, principally because I was opposed to the 30k blanket speed limit being implemented outside of schools at all hours. And for me, my belief remains that if we are to implement speed limits around schools, they should be variable and proportionate to the risk. So I too want to keep our kids safe, but in my view, having that blanket speed limit around schools that also apply at 3 a.m. in the morning is madness. We're basically protecting ghost people with eating their ghost chips at 3 a.m. So in my view, we should make laws and create policy settings that are about achieving an outcome. And our approach in the previous SMP was just to progress that one-size-fits-all approach, and I just didn't agree with it. I am worried about the credibility factor, and I think that our community might ignore or reject our approach, undermining that key objective to keep kids safe, which is around that risk being around during the daylight hours. And my argument is, apart from and I get the argument of just get on with it, but things have changed since we last supported the adoption of the SMP. And so I was going to try and come up with a convincing argument to try and persuade you all to have another look at it, but I think that the appetite is just to get on with it. But I guess the final point I wanted to make was that, where we were heading when we did this SMP was that the government had signalled that they wanted to get this whole district, all the urban areas, down to a 30-kilometre speed limit in time. And so our response to that was that this was an interim step. And so given that that is no longer the objective and that this government has moved away from that, I guess what I would call a bit of an absurd policy around trying to slow down and kill New Zealand's productivity through blanket speed limit decreases. Like, is it appropriate to have another look? Is it appropriate to have another think and look at those variable speed limits around schools? But I get that the appetite is low around the table, and so I will just record my vote against.
And I'll send you a description of what the word brief means at some stage following the meeting, so that there's no confusion around your interpretation of that word and my interpretation of that word. Councillor Tupapua.
I'll just rebut a couple of things that Councillor Jennings has raised around schools. That is, we want to normalise people slowing down and going slow in front of school. School is not from 9 to 3 p.m. They have extracurricular activities after school, sports practices, events are held where families come. Those places are active before and after that 9 to 3. So, and change of behaviour needs to become habitual. So if we can slow down the traffic during those high activity areas, look, 3 a.m. Really? Like, if someone wants to speed through there, so be it, and there's probably not a policeman around, actually, so if that's what they want to do, whatever. But the fact remains, we need to protect children. They're vulnerable, and the little ones, well, James pointed out that their view is like down here, but also some of them don't have the understanding, the comprehension of danger necessarily, and step outs is. So, like, I'm just hand on heart, I'm not prepared to take a risk with children getting hurt when we could have done something about it, and we will.
So we have a recommendation on the table for 3.4. The Council authorise Chief Executive to submit the previously endorsed Horowhenua District Draft Speed Management Plan 2024-2034 to NZTA for certification. I do have a mover and seconder for that. I don't know. Yeah. So, any further debate or discussion? Put it to the table. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you very much.
Sorry, Mayor Kenny. Just an additional point from me is I don't mind the word waka kotahi being added to, just keeping it real.
Well, I'm only following Waka Kotahi's change in their description of their agency now. It has gone back to NZTA on there. Yeah. Well, I'm using their terminology, not... Yeah. Okay. Understood. Point noted. Okay, so we're now moving to 6.5, which is on page 211 of your agenda. It is the water meter rollout leak remission. And welcome Daniel to the table. Just moving 3.1 and 3.2, that the report be received and recognised as not significant. Seconded by Deputy Mayor Allen. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you, Daniel.
Good afternoon. I would like to take the opportunity to remind elected members of the previous decision of Council, the commitment through the long-term plan amendment to roll out water meters over the next 2 years, acknowledging that 40% of our district is already metered, but there's a commitment and a particular council paper that is attached to this report, but public excluded due to commercial reasons around contract values and procurement. But yeah, effectively reminding councillors that we're here today with a focus on the remission as we start to roll out that water metering program of work. So we're expecting that the project should yield significant savings, 15 to 20% across our community. This will provide both operational savings, but also provides much needed capacity for growth. We're poised to commence the work in Shannon from next week. So today, really considering that modification to the existing remissions policy, that if we are to discover a leak, which we expect we will, around how that would be managed in terms of remission for the ratepayer for the likely water bill that would be generated from that process. So currently, if residents find a leak and it's identified and repaired, they can make an application to have 50% of the bill from the previous 3 months basically remitted and refunded upon evidence of their plumber's bill being provided. The option today will consider that being up to 100%, so it effectively provides an amnesty period where a leak's identified in a minimum of 3 months grace period for that to be repaired and for that for them to effectively receive no bill. It's important to note in the future that we will have an automated process that once per week those meters will be read. There'll be a sophisticated dashboard type system that community members can log into to sign up to alerts when leaks are provided, but in the intervening period we're still working off a manual reading scenario. But it's really also important to note that we have the opportunity during the rollout that every meter starts at zero. We're putting letter drops, we're engaging quite actively with the community and the members that we're installing meters with. And as part of the rollout, within 24 to 48 hours, our team could be walking around and quite easily identify a leak. And it wouldn't be a case of actually leaving it 3 months to jump into a billing cycle. As part of that rollout, we've resourced the team to enable them to identify those leaks, obvious leaks, really early in the process, so we can get in and get them fixed. And ideally, there wouldn't even be a need for a bill or a remission to be in place. So it's almost a backstop to ensure that we do stick to that premise of, or provide that amnesty, and really it's a decision of elected members whether we will provide that leeway in that first 3 months if a bill is incurred to apply under the existing remissions policy. So take the report as read and happy to answer any questions.
Daniel, just a quick question from me. In terms of notifying those that are having water meters installed, what communication are we making to them around that very thing, that they've got a certain period of time where they can, if there are leaks, identify them? And I mean, some may not actually acknowledge that they've got a leak for some time, and I just, how are we communicating with them to ensure that they do respond?
So we have prepared media releases, letter drops. We've just held off engaging widely until we get this decision of council today, so that there's an intentional position around how that remission would be managed in the case of a leak being identified. Certainly, even from next week, if we were to get a volunteer for an elected member who wanted to be there to install the first meter, there might be an opportunity to get some further media coverage. But yeah, there's certainly a plan to get out there and engage in the community. The team will be working in the area, letter drops, contact details provided. So we do very much want to engage the community and help them do their best to conserve that important resource.
Did you want to add something?
It's just specifically to your point, me burning, in that 48-hour window where we're checking how much the meters move from zero to whatever, if the whatever is sending the alerts that says we've got an issue at this property, that's obviously an important touch point of where there would be communication to that household around, hey, we think there's an issue.
Councillor.
My question is, I'm trying to understand, is the bill, the invoice, a penalty for wasting water, or is it a charge because we had to fix your side of the problem? Is it either or, is it both? And in which case, what one of those gets the remission?
So currently, the water charging kicks in effectively when you use more than 1,000 litres per day. So over a 90-day period, in general terms, the residents would have access to 90 cubic metres of water. So if they were to use in excess of that, there's a dollar value figure that starts to tick over, only small dollars in terms of dollar odd per metre, depending on which area you are, because Foxton has a slightly different dynamic, and we've committed as part of the rating review to look at how that charging might work, to look at things like remissions for larger families, or dropping that minimum allowance but charging for heavier users. There's a whole range of things. But to directly answer your question, it's very much associated with the overuse of water. The cost for the repair on private property is a cost that would have to be borne by the resident, and what we're seeking by getting a copy of the invoice is just really evidence that the repair has been undertaken.
The reason is, and I'm not breaking this down for you, but for just, am I following? At the moment, anyone who's connected to our water supply, everyone is paying the same. Like, so we got a resource consent from Horizons to take X amount of water per year. It goes out to whoever's connected, and you're charged for water, same. With the new meter, though, it'll be probably like Foxton Beach. They've got some set charges. You use this much, you go over that amount, then the rate is different again, and that's recorded, and they're charged accordingly, right? So those of us that are not going to get the water meter, because at the moment you use as much as you like. If you've got leaks and don't know about it, doesn't matter, because you're just paying the same per annum. Now you got the water meter, and you charge as you use, right? Those 1,000 litres a day. If you go above that now, you're gonna get an invoice for that extra, right? And what I'm trying to understand is that new money, or is, like, if everyone was just paying their $1,000 a day, 1,000 litres a day every day of the year, does that equate to the same amount we're collecting now? And then is there over and above usage another amount again, which effectively could be new money if there was, like, a property needs 4,000 litres. Yes, they'd pay that amount, but then if you look across a year, and you like this from all various users, we could be collecting more water money than we currently do, and then so you charge these invoices and you give what period of saving grace, and that works out to what. Like, do you see where I'm trying to establish whether there is going to be new money or the same money distributed differently? Or, and if there is new money, how are we going to, have we already, because I don't recall that conversation about what we're going to use that new money for, and if there is, and then do we need to be remitting? Or are we remitting, like, what do we...
Hang on.
No, because I'm trying to just understand. It's a question. It's a...
I think Daniel's got the question. Yeah.
Have I misunderstood how we, the invoiced part versus how it's remitted? And because it's either you do the full amount or half, so it matters.
So under the premise that if you don't have a meter, that revenue wouldn't be currently taken into account. If we went through a process to remit 100% of that, then it's almost cost neutral. But if after that first notice and engagement with that community member, they refuse to fix that leak, council continue to invoice, then there is potential that it would generate more revenue. But one of the guiding principles for this piece of work is to actually identify, work with the community to repair those leaks. It's a further piece of work during the project implementation. We'll be looking at whether there's an appetite for council to even consider how we could work more closely with those residents around assisting them to repair, and that would be part of a future paper. We'll also be coming back next financial year around what the overall rating mechanism would look like. But if you work on the basis that 40% of our district's currently metered, and those are the large users, those are where we've historically identified a leak, or we know someone has a large swimming pool and they've been overusers in the past, they've already got a meter. And if I probably talk on a personal basis that we've got quite a large family, a large household. We, are fairly generous with shower times and the like, but the only time that we've ever had an invoice has been when that we actually had a leak. So 9 times out of 10, this shouldn't actually impact on a general water user, and that the balance of that 40% of our district, what we're hoping to achieve is to identify and remedy those leaks, and there's not an expectation that there would be a large uplift in revenue. But obviously time will tell, depending on how community members respond. If there's a refusal to repair leaks and the decision is for a 3-month amnesty, then obviously at that point in the future it will start to trigger additional revenue generation.
Thank you for the answer. Time will tell is key. And I was trying to understand that, Rogan. Sorry, I'm not as sharp as you, because I've got a subsequent motion if 3.4 goes through. And that was, if you wouldn't mind, Grayson, reading it.
And so that Council requests the Chief Executive to report back by December 2024 on the financial effect of Option 2, additional remission, provide 3-month amnesty for education and proactive repairs.
Sorry, we're still on question time for Daniel, if there's any. Councillor Jennings.
Yeah, just one question. Dan, thanks for your proactively dealt with one of the questions I had, which is around our implementation activities, obviously trying to identify those leaks earlier than the 3-month billing cycle, which is great to hear. In the report, there's a paragraph 5.4 which talks about the report does not consider the resourcing and management of target rate and charge back to residents for private leak repairs. And that was something I'd talked about in previous workshops and meetings, about being interested in exploring that. And we've had some good conversations around the workability or otherwise of that. And so I accept that there's no plan at this stage to where a leak is identified on a private property and that then falls to the private property owner to repair the leak. I'm no longer seeking a sort of an option that sees us carry some of that cost in order to smooth that for the property owner, because I think there's some risk there. But is there any other options that we're looking at in terms of the thinking around how we could help property owners if they do discover a leak on the private property? Because there still remains that concern about the sudden shock of a massive plumber's bill. Is there anything that we could do or that we might look at as part of our implementation activities? And it's okay if we haven't done that thinking yet.
The team have taken an action to engage with the local plumbing community. There's a number that we have regular contact when we have call-outs. So just in terms of ensuring that there's an awareness of our program of rollouts and the objectives around that. We're also looking at whether there's an option of leaving calling cards for those, but we've got to be very careful in terms of crossing that line and promoting a particular business over another. So certainly just ensuring there's some market awareness, but that might be as much as we can do at this point.
So doing an unashamed plug while the media's in the room to call out for plumbers and private plumbing firms to perhaps ensure that their business models involve a payment plan or some sort of flexibility for private ratepayers is a welcome timing on that.
Thank you for that marketing plug for the plumbers of the district. That's very good. Any further questions for Daniel? Thank you, Daniel. So, reminder, councillors, that we have either recommendation 3.3, which is option 1, which is that this option means that residents would be billed in the quarter following installation if excessive water has been lost as a result of a leak. The resident is eligible for a 50% remission upon proof of repair, plumber's invoice, etc. Or 3.4, which is a council approved option 2, which is that this option provides the opportunity for residents to apply within 3 months of meter installation for up to
a 100% remission as a result of a leak and upon proof of repair, plumber's invoice, etc., in accordance with the existing rates remission policy. Councillor Tukapua, do you
Yeah,
wish to...
I'm interested in moving option 2 to provide the amnesty, the period in which the resident can fix the problem if one's identified. But there's that subsequent motion that we actually monitor the financial implications of providing a full... Oh, sorry. Okay.
Move option 2. Let's get that on the table, and then after that has been discussed and debated and voted on, we'll then move to that other further recommendation if needed. So, Councillor Jennings.
Sorry, just point of order, Mr. Mayor. I think from hearing Councillor Tukupua's earlier signal in question time, her suggestion was that she was moving that, but it being contingent on that additional motion. So that kind of, it was the horse and the cart, rather than just the horse or the cart. But she might want to speak to that.
Can I clarify on the horse and the cart there? Because I wouldn't support a 3.4, 3.5, but I might support a 3.4 without 3.5. And then if they were moving this block, we couldn't.
Unless we approve 3.4, then 3.5 would not become, so eligible to be put forward if it doesn't pass. So, Councillor Tukapua, just confirming that you're moving 3.4?
Yeah.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder for that? Sorry, all 3. We'll say Councillor Boyle has seconded that motion. So is there any further debate or discussion on it? Councillor Tukapua.
Just to say that we are implementing or have decided to go through with the water meters as leak detectors, that this is not a revenue gathering exercise. We genuinely want to conserve the water. We know that it's at its limits as it is. Can't afford to waste any. The reservoir or whatever our alternate source is going to be in the future is not happening soon enough. So this is just a good measure. And I just don't want people to feel, threatened by it, that they've got a window to sort out the situation.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes, Jennings.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, just echoing that it just absolutely makes sense. Our key objective here, the outcome we want to see is that leaks on private properties are identified and fixed. And so ensuring that we have the settings that achieve that or seek to support and make it as favourable as possible for these issues to be resolved, I think it just makes sense, and so absolutely support the motion.
Thank you. So I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour? Against? Carried unanimously. Thank you very much. Now, moving to 3.5. Since that has passed, the Council requests the Chief Executive to report back by December 2024 on the financial effect of option 2, additional remission, providing a 3-month amnesty for education and proactive repairs. Is that how you envisioned that, Councillor Tukapua?
Sounds flashier than what I would have come up with. The time frame was advised by the Chief Executive. This is not my date. This is just to understand the financial effect or implication of our decision, and it's just prudent to be monitoring, because this is new and we haven't done it before, how it might trend, and just doing our job.
So you're moving that recommendation. Do I have a seconder for it, please? Councillor Horowhenua. Any further discussion? Councillor Boyle.
I'm happy to have this pass, and I don't particularly carry the way, but I think the report covers it pretty well on 6.4 and 6.5. We haven't budgeted to get any new money from this year or next year. These remissions aren't anybody getting free stuff. We're just not going to charge them. They're going to get things fixed. These are leak detectors. 6.5 clearly covers that if we do make any extra money from this, it's going to be offset against future water rates. We're already going to see in our financials in the next year how much we gave in remissions for this. I don't know if we need an extra. Yeah, I don't. It seems unnecessary.
Thank you. I'll put the motion then. All those in favour? Against? 1, 2, 3 against. 4 against. So the motion is carried 9-4. Thank you. So that brings us to an end of the open agenda. I just need to move that we move to in committee and to discuss the minutes of our in committee meeting from February the 7th, 2024. So do I have a seconded by Deputy Mayor Allen? All those in favour? Thank you. Thank you to staff. Thank you to members of the public who watched and any members of the public still in the room. We'll just take a 2-minute break while